So the Denver Broncos came within 3 points of the Super Bowl, and now one of their star players is saying something that has the entire football world talking. Garett Bolles, the Broncos' offensive tackle, just went on record and made a statement that's got everyone asking one question. Would Denver actually be Super Bowl champions right now if Bo Nix had been healthy? And honestly, after hearing what Bolles had to say, I'm not so sure he's wrong. This isn't just some bitter player venting after a tough loss. This is a guy who was literally nominated for Protector of the Year and the Walter Payton Man of the Year award. So when he speaks, people listen. According to reports from the NFL Daily podcast, Bolles didn't hold back when talking about that AFC Championship game loss to the New England Patriots, and what he revealed gives us a completely different perspective on how close the Broncos actually were to making history. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this isn't just about one play or one moment. It's about a series of decisions and unfortunate events that may have cost Denver everything they worked for all season. Let me break down exactly what happened, because the more you dig into this story, the more you realize just how heartbreaking this loss really was for the Broncos. First, let's talk about what Bolles actually said, because his words are pretty bold. When asked directly on the podcast if the Broncos would have beaten the Patriots with Bo Nix on the field, Bolles didn't hesitate. He simply said, yeah. No sugarcoating, no politician answer, just straight-up confidence that Denver would be preparing for the Super Bowl right now instead of watching from home. And you know what? I actually respect that kind of honesty from a player, because we're so used to hearing these carefully crafted responses that don't really say anything. But Bolles went further, stating clearly that if they had Bo Nix, it would be a different ballgame, and he emphasized that's all he was saying, almost like he was trying to be respectful but couldn't hold back the truth. Now, before we judge whether he's right or wrong, let's look at what actually happened to Bo Nix, because this is where the story gets absolutely devastating for Broncos fans. According to sources, Nix suffered a broken ankle on the third-to-last play of Denver's divisional round overtime win against the Buffalo Bills. Think about that timing for a second. Not in Week 3, not in some meaningless game, but literally in the final moments of a playoff victory that sent them to the AFC Championship game. It's the kind of timing that makes you wonder if the football gods just had it out for Denver this year. So the Broncos had to go into the biggest game of their season, an AFC Championship game against the Patriots, without their starting quarterback, and they lost by just 3 points in a 10-7 defensive battle. 3 points. That's the difference between a Super Bowl appearance and going home, and it's exactly why Bolles believes what he believes. But here's something that makes this even more complicated, and this is where the real controversy starts bubbling up. During that championship game, head coach Sean Payton made some decisions that have people questioning everything. There was a failed fourth-down pass attempt in the second quarter, and according to reports, Payton bypassed a field goal attempt that likely would have given Denver a 10-0 lead. Let that sink in for a moment. In a game that ended 10-7, the Broncos passed up a chance at a field goal that could have made it 10-0, and instead went for it on fourth down and failed. Bolles even admitted he wished they had run the ball when it was 4th and 1, saying, yeah, go back in time, sure, but acknowledging that coach made the play call and they had to execute it, and they didn't. And here's his kicker. Bolles said that was the difference in the game. So we've got a quarterback injury and a questionable coaching decision, but wait, there's more, because Mother Nature decided to crash the party too. The second half of that championship game turned into what sources described as blizzard-like conditions, with snow becoming a starring role in how the game played out. Now, some people have tried to use the weather as an excuse, but Bolles shut that down pretty quickly. According to his comments on the podcast, he said they can say what they want, whatever they want, but they lost by 3 points, and it wasn't the snowstorm, it wasn't anything else. He gave props to Jarrett Stidham, the backup quarterback who had to step in for Nix, saying he loves that dude and is grateful Stiddy came in and handled the business he did. But then Bolles circled right back to his main point. It would be a different ballgame if they had their quarterback. And honestly, I find myself nodding along with his logic here, because when you really think about it, everything he's saying makes sense. The game was decided by 3 points in terrible weather conditions with a backup quarterback. So is it really that crazy to think having your starter, the guy who led you there in the first place, would have changed the outcome? I mean, we're not talking about some massive blowout where Denver got dominated. We're talking about 3 points in a snowstorm. But here's where it gets a little spicy, and I love this part. Bolles was asked about the upcoming Super Bowl, and without hesitation, he said he hopes the Patriots lose. No fake sportsmanship, no wishing them well, just pure, honest emotion from a guy who believes his team should be the one playing in that game. And you know what? I can't even blame him for feeling that way, because if I was 3 points away from the Super Bowl and believed we would have won with our starting quarterback, I'd probably feel the same way. According to sources, Bolles is clearly a guy who believes the Broncos' AFC Championship game fate was decided in the divisional round before it swirled away in a snowy nightmare, and he's definitely not over the heartbreaker yet. But what really stands out to me is how much respect Bolles has for Bo Nix, and this gives us real insight into what Nix means to that team. Bolles didn't just talk about Nix's physical abilities, he talked about the devastating emotional impact of losing him. He said he thought it wasn't true when he first heard about the injury, which shows you how shocking it was in the moment. Then Bolles broke down exactly why Nix is so valuable, saying Bo took them there, had a phenomenal year, and when you lose a guy like that, who's a leader of not just the offensive line but the entire team, it changes everything. He specifically mentioned Nix's confidence level, his swagger, his ability to run and see the open field in different ways, calling him a tough piece to lose. And this is what separates good quarterbacks from great ones. It's not just about the physical tools, it's about the intangibles, the leadership, the way they make everyone around them better. So where does this leave us? Well, Bolles acknowledged they were right there with what they needed to do but didn't get it done, which is probably the most painful part of all this. They were right there, 3 points away, 1 play away, 1 healthy quarterback away, if you believe what Bolles is saying. But despite all the pain and frustration, Bolles ended on a positive note, saying he's excited to see what the future holds for them. And honestly, that's the right attitude to have, because according to sources, Nix suffered what is being described as a typical bone break and should be back in 4 to 6 weeks. So it's not like this is a career-threatening injury or something that will linger into next season. The Broncos will have their quarterback back, they'll have Bolles protecting him, and they'll have the memory of being 3 points away from the Super Bowl to fuel them. Here's my take on all of this, and I'm trying to be as fair as possible here. I think Bolles is probably right. I know that might sound controversial, and I know Patriots fans will probably hate hearing this, but when you look at the facts, it's hard to argue against his logic. The game was decided by 3 points. It was played in a blizzard, Denver had a backup quarterback, and there was a questionable 4th down decision that could have given them a 10-point lead. Any one of those factors being different could have changed the outcome. So having your starter, the guy who led you there in the first place, probably tips the scales in Denver's favor. Does that take anything away from what the Patriots accomplished? Absolutely not. They won the game fair and square with the circumstances that were in front of them. But that doesn't mean we can't acknowledge that circumstances matter, and the circumstances were pretty brutal for Denver. The real question now is what happens next season, because the Broncos are going to come back with something to prove. They've got a young quarterback who already showed he can lead them deep into the playoffs. They've got leaders like Bolles who are hungry for redemption. And according to sources, ownership is backing both GM George Paton and coach Sean Payton despite the playoff heartbreak. And honestly, I think that's the right call, because this wasn't a fluke season for Denver. This was a legitimate contender that got derailed by the worst possible timing for an injury. So while Bolles sits at home hoping the Patriots lose in the Super Bowl, he's also looking ahead to next year when the Broncos will have a full season to prove that, yeah, they really were just 3 points and 1 healthy quarterback away from being champions. Whether you agree with Bolles or not, you've got to respect the conviction, and you've got to admit he makes a pretty compelling case that the Broncos' Super Bowl window is just opening, not closing.